Now that was just the skill sets of four different kinds required for someone practice visual arts or actually arts as a cultural elite artist slash politician. In the meantime, the techniques were very, very demanding. The ink brush strokes, the techniques to manipulate with that came from the exact same resource as for calligraphies. This is why today, when you look at a Chinese ink brush painting and you realize the calligraphy art is not there, it's separately in a totally different genre. And this was not the case, at least in most cases, back then in the Chinese art history. For the Chinese artists slash politicians of this particular school, techniques were very important, but they were only rudimentary. It is more than just the skill set, but pretty much about the mindset. You have to be a big intellectual to actually do well in this school. What was considered an intellectual in the old Chinese society back then? I can tell you one thing, it was extremely demanding. Traditionally, the Chinese recognize the intellectuals at three different levels. The first level, very few could make it. We're talking about people created entire system of Confucianism, Taoism, and Zennism. Let's first look at Taoism, which pretty much had been the main driver of Chinese social elite art school. In fact, Taoism was also the fundamental resource for the Chinese science and all arts. Lao Tzu was the one particularly responsible for the Taoism, and he was from the time around 7th century BC. The next one in line developed the system of Taoism was Zhuangzi, who was in the historical period around 278 to 300 BC, around that time. Now, this were the class of philosophers who never even cared to put down their thought in words. They left all that job for the people followed them and put their thought together into system. But there was this famous dialogue recorded in history that one day Zhuangzi was standing on a bridge, looking over the bridge down to the water where schools of fish swimming by. And Zhuangzi commented, "Oh, look at them. They're so pleasant. They're so happy." And the guy stood right next to him was one of his students. And the guy said, "Well, you're not a fish. How would you know they're happy or not happy?" Well, Zhuangzi said in reply to his student, "Duh, you're not me. How would you know that I don't know or I do know about what the fish was thinking?" It really alludes to the fact that people know what they know, and they may or may not know what they don't know. This is just one simple example of the system of philosophy whereas Taoism actually suggested to most of the people believing that philosophy for hermitage in deep mountains high above, which actually influenced that particular school of artistic aspect and perspectives. Instead of a single point of disappearance in the Western school of artistic perspectives, the Chinese traditional ink painting would have the compositions pretty much reveal a bird view angle, which is supposed to be looking down from top of a big mountain, and you see this panorama view of the landscape. We noticed that in the Chinese system, portrait for a long time was not that important, and you would only identify a little people figure hidden in between the woods or walking down the mountains on a little donkey. It is in a very well-preserved proportion between people and the Mother Nature. You would find many poetries reflecting the philosophy when people walking into woods and looking at a tree of 1,000 years old, and under the tree there was a temple of several hundred years old becoming a ruin. And the chief monks of that particular temple perished for generations. So here the thought is, what is a person in reference to the Mother Nature that the person lived through in his own lifetime? It's almost nothing. This is why we don't really see people carry much significance in the paintings of the Chinese social elite of that particular school. Again, you have to be quite an intellectual to qualify as that particular school of artists at that time. Obviously, that is very challenging.